What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank. Black man talks about the greatest lie ever told on us black people. And by us black people, I mean unmistakably West and Central African black people specifically. Because even right now in the age of information, where more information is being revealed about the greatness of us Africans, if you've not noticed, white supremacy and Arab supremacy have been pulling their goalposts back further and further as evidence pushes their narrative to the side, right? But at the same time, they're still doing this thing where they're still trying to figure out how can we take credit away from or not teach about the greatness of the unmistakable West African black Bantu man in comparisons to the still racially ambiguous ancient Egyptians, which we all know were just black Africans, including Bantu Africans like myself, okay? But the unmistakable history that's in West Africa that's purposely being suppressed is because they don't want black people to realize that as great as Egypt is in the north of Africa, which we as black Africans from West Africa participated in, because last time I checked, all right, Egypt said that their empire went from sea to sea. Like their empire went all the way to Cameroon. All right, you got to understand. That's why I went to school for history. I'm a historian. I have a degree to back it up. All right. What I love about history, and which you'll never get taught this in high school. You'll never get taught this unless you're specifically in world history and you're getting and digging into the academia that's hidden from the general public. Is that ancient West Africa and Central Africa, which were the precursors to all of that Egyptian Nilotic civilizations, they had advanced complex societies, advanced complex cities and social settings. They had advanced cities with paved roads and multi-story buildings. We're talking about Nigeria, Congo, Benin, Togo, Ghana, Sierra Leone. We're talking about unmistakably all the way on the other side of that massive continent, black Africans. We also had pyramids, megalithic structures, which still gets ignored to this day. Like the Great Wall of Benin still doesn't get the respect it deserves, even though it was bigger, longer, and more intricate than the Great Wall of China, which seems to get all the world's praise. But black Africans, before that wall was built, we built one bigger, longer, and more effective. It actually worked. Right? Well, until, cannons and shit came along and fucked that up. Cannons was the destroyer of all megalithic wall stone structures because they just broke them down. That's what happened, right? But I'm gonna let this black man, speak to the history that we have that's hidden. You got to understand the little bit that you know about black African history. When I say black African, I want to make sure we're not talking about mixed mulatto black Arabs. I'm not talking about the Greek Turkmen North Africans that pretend to be Arab, but they're not even Arab. They're white, Greek, Roman Turkmens that just be light-skinned like myself, and they are Islamic, so they call themselves Arab, and the actual Arab people who are just mixed mulatto, black, white, and Asians don't like those regular, just mixed black and white ones over there in North Africa. Like, they don't even like each other, right? But you see how they still collectively like to snatch African history for themselves, because as an Arab man or a person who's Arabic with that identity, they don't have history. They don't have a history. They don't have an ancient history. Even Mesopotamia, those were black Africans. Everybody was black African until just recently. So all ancient history within that area were all black, unmistakable people like myself and other black people, right? Arabs is a consequence of black Asians and Europeans fucking and trading over time. That's what the fuck Arabs are. All right, they're not a distinct race of people who existed for any point in time. All right, they're a mixed mulatto group because they just happen to reside in the trading routes at which the three major groups of people, Asians, Europeans, and Africans, traded and conquered various, different little areas in the trading routes, the Silk Road routes, these routes. All right, but in fact, black African, West African, unmistakable, all the way down, can't be mistaken for no Arab or Europeans, built megalithic structures, are the precursors to Kemet. All right, and there was a precursor society that was just as advanced and just as amazing before Kemet. We never talk about that because they can't say that those were white. They can't say that those are Arabic. They can't say that. North African history is black West African history until recently. All North African history that is ancient is black, unmistakably black African, Bantu, Nilotics history, Bushman history, Sankoy history, the groups of Africans. This is all our history. And the thing is, the little bit of African history that you get now, it's not even a Costco sample of what's true. I'm so excited for my descendants who are going to receive a world at which we have our own black African institutions with our own archaeologists, our own biologists, our own historians, where we'll be digging into our own black dirt, telling our own black stories and telling them the truth, unbiased by white supremacy, about the true depth of black African history. You got to remember, we've been here for millions of years. Just us black people, millions of years. Everybody else just got here. And we know everything about their little history. Imagine the history that you don't know. There's more black African history that you do know that you don't know. Listen, there's more black African, specifically West African history that you don't know than all the world's history that you can research and look up right now, and the history that you know in your head taught by the white man. Everything you know, matter of fact, everything in your brain that you know about anything that happened yesterday and beyond, right? We know less about the truth about Africa than you know about anything from yesterday and beyond in the past. That's how much information is sitting there waiting for us to gather and nourish ourselves with that. And it's there for us. And there's some people reaching out and digging into it, right? But unfortunately, the real history that'll satiate you, that make you feel proud to be black, that'll make you not want to be anything else, even though it's pretty hard to want to be anything else. Let's just keep it real. Despite the shit we go through, most black people would never want to come back anything else. Matter of fact, if I come back again, I'm coming back black. I guarantee you it. I don't care what kind of struggle. I'd rather be black and deal with slavery than be white and be an enslaver. Yes, that's how much I love being black. I love being black so much, I will go through any hardship, through any time period, just to be black, rather than go through any period of abundance and be white. You know why? Because I know, as a black person, I got something that those, slave masters don't have. A soul. And I enjoy having one and living with one and recognizing people who also have souls and communing with those. Because ain't nothing like finding another soul, right? And y'all both know y'all souls here in this living experience and experiencing this world together, knowing who you are, right? But anyway, without further ado, let's listen to this highly intelligent man educate us once again on, the things that we don't know because of the greatest lies ever told. As black folks, we ain't never done nothing. We ain't worth 2 dead flies. We ain't got a pot to piss in the window, throw it out. We ain't shit, right? Biggest lie ever told. Anyway, tell what you guys think in the comment section. It's Afro Think Tank. Learn something, teach something. I'm out.
Dr. W. Gabriel Selassie, I hear the people's historian. What has been one of the greatest lies perpetrated against black people and specifically black Africans in world history? Take a look at this image. Have you seen it before? Chances are for most Americans and frankly for most people in general, the answer is no. That absence matters because this image challenges an entire historical narrative that has been carefully constructed for centuries. The image is known as Running Horned Woman, a rock painting found in the Tassili Niger Plateau in southeastern Algeria, deep in the Sahara Desert of North Africa. Scholars believe it dates somewhere between 6,000 and 4,000 BCE. That places it thousands of years before the rise of dynastic Kemet, long before the pyramids, long before the pharaohs, long before Greece, long before Rome. And yet black people were already living, creating art, building culture, and developing complex societies across North Africa. I'll return to this painting a little bit later. The fact alone destroys one of the central myths that European racial ideology spent centuries trying to create. The idea that civilization somehow emerged outside of Africa and was later brought to black people. The evidence has been sitting in the Sahara for thousands of years. The problem is that most people were never taught to see it. The Tassili caves were brought to wider attention in 1933 by a French Foreign Legion officer named Lieutenant Charles Brennans, the good guy. While he was stationed in Algeria, Brennans encountered Tuareg nomads who guided him to the caves and rock art sites scattered across the Tassili Plateau. Brennans immediately realized what he was seeing was extraordinary, and he began sketching the paintings and documenting the engravings. These sketches eventually attracted the attention of French archaeologists and historians, leading to a series of expeditions during the 1930s. Then World War II interrupted much of the work. But after the war, French expeditions returned in force during the 1950s under the direction of the French ethnographer Henri Lehout, who led major expeditions between 1956 and 57, the bad guy. Now here is where the story begins to shift from archaeology to ideology, because Lehout became internationally famous for publicizing the paintings. His books and photographs introduced the world to Tassili. But later, serious criticism emerged surrounding the way the paintings were interpreted and reproduced. Researchers accused members of Lehout's expedition team of tracing over some of the paintings or enhancing others, and in some cases even damaging the original art while attempting to reproduce it for publication. One of the most controversial examples was an image Lehout famously referred to as the White Lady. Remember this painting? And you have to stop and ask yourself the question, why was there such an obsession with making ancient Africa appear non-black? Why did European scholars like Lehout repeatedly search for ways to disconnect black Africans from civilization in Africa itself? Because the implications were enormous. If black Africans occupied North Africa thousands of years before dynastic Kemet, then the old racial narratives collapse. Suddenly, Kemet no longer appears to be some isolated miracle created by mysterious outsiders. Instead, it becomes part of a much older continuum of African civilization stretching across the Sahara when the Sahara was not yet desert. And that is another lie that most people never unlearn. The Sahara was not a wasteland of sand. Thousands of years ago, it was green, rivers flowed through it, grasslands spread across it, and animals and human communities flourished within it. The Tassili region alone contains more than 15,000 documented paintings and engravings dating roughly from 12,000 BCE to about 100 CE. They depict animal communities, human activity, and cattle matter, because cattle require grazing land, vegetation. You cannot have massive cattle culture in an empty desert. Now, some of the images in Tassili look strange to audiences. Elongated figures, masked beings, horned forms, naturally modern internet mythology then jumps to aliens and ancient astronauts, because apparently human beings can imagine extraterrestrials faster than they can imagine advanced ancient Africans. But most historians and archaeologists interpret many of these figures as ceremonial costumes, ritual deaths, masks, spiritual symbolism, and honestly, that interpretation makes far more sense. Ancient African societies, including later Kemetians, use masks, body paint, elaborate headdresses, and ceremonial dress for religious and social purposes. We know this from countless African traditions across the continent. And importantly, many of the Tassili images clearly depict ordinary human life: dancing, herding, hunting, social interaction, and yes, even sexual activity. These were human communities, sophisticated human communities, African human communities. Now here is where another major myth begins to unravel. For generations, Europeans promoted the idea that Africans contributed little to technological innovation. One of the oldest racist myths claims that Africans did not invent or meaningfully developed wheeled transportation. And yet, among the Tassili engravings are depictions of chariots and wheeled vehicles dating to the later phases of rock art tradition. Now, historians debate the exact origins of this technology in the Sahara. Some argue these ideas developed through contact with Egypt. Others argue that it may have been wider exchanges across North Africa and the Mediterranean world. But here is the key point. Either way, black Africans were not isolated from technological development. And either way, black people occupied North Africa, including the regions connected to ancient Kemet, long before the rise of dynastic Kemet, or Egypt. This is what matters. The lie was never simply about skin color. The lie was about civilization itself. European racial ideology needed Africa to appear disconnected from the world because the entire intellectual framework of white supremacy depended upon presenting black people as historically passive, primitive, or dependent upon outsiders. But Tassili destroys that illusion, not because it gives us fantasy, because it gives us evidence, real paintings, real archaeology, real people, real history. And perhaps the greatest irony of all is this: the evidence was sitting openly on cave walls in the Sahara while generations of historians worked desperately to explain away what was directly in front of them. Because sometimes history is not hidden. And today, with the destruction of black history, the goal is to make sure certain groups of people are simply taught not to see it.
The texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you?
Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! We most definitely cannot forget about the people of Sudan.
Thanks for watching Afro Think Tank. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And follow me on Substack and Patreon for more content. Remember, it's Pan-Africanism or nothing.